I went back and watched the Saren Colmer Face of Fear video and found out that I said I would talk about Radok next, which makes sense and also doesn't make sense. The flow should really go to Garrett because you can't really understand Radok without knowing Garrett. But at the same time, I did a whole write up of Radok for the website, and here it is. Just like with Saren Colmer, although for Radok, it's not like journal entries or anything for him. I actually did a write up so that people could use him as an NPC. Although, if you're hoping to get stats, like a stat block for him, I didn't do one. I specifically made the characters for the website without stat blocks, just the overview of their personality, how they act, what they do, and that way you can tailor them as needed statistics wise. It's also because I'm very lazy. So I'm going to try and read through this as I go. This is just the introduction part. Radok the Toad. Toad, leech, imp, scum. A worthless hanger-on as welcome as dog waste on a boot sole. Batshit insane. The cultists refer to Radok by all these epithets and more, when they bother to acknowledge him at all. Radok, however, prefers to be called Garrett's Sheath. I'll show you a picture of Radok. Oh, there's the happy little bugger. Isn't he wonderful? This is actually art from a magic card called Kill Suit Cultist, which is just an absolute perfect fit for Radok, because he's a cultist and he wears a kill suit, much like this. I always had, I think at the time I came up with Radok, I was playing Magic the Gathering, and Ravnica was the set that was out, and this is from the Ravnica set. I think this is actually from the third expansion in the Ravnica set. But this is how they envision goblins, and it's not a particularly D&D take on goblins, but I just really loved the art style for it. Let's go back to Radok's paper here. So there's a couple things to talk about. I guess when we get there, we'll get there. So here we go into some of his history. Radok was unusually violent and antisocial even for a goblin. If he's going to be a cultist with the Faces of Fear, he can't just be your regular run-of-the-mill goblin. He's got to be someone special. His warren was invaded and slaughtered by a group of delvers exploring the area. Delvers is the tallest word for adventurers, because they delve down into the dungeons beneath the city. Radok was isolated from the rest of the warren and was thus spared from the initial slaughter. One of the delvers, a cruel and disfigured human named Garrett, the swordsman, managed to capture him as a prize. For several weeks, Garrett kept Radok and several of his warren mates on a leash, using them for practice on slow nights. Garrett is, of course, an evil, sadistic swordsman. So, yeah, he chained up a bunch of goblins, and when he got bored, took one out and, cut it to pieces with his swords. For several weeks, during that time, Radok grew to idolize Garrett's skill and cruelty. One of the things with the game world with Trocare, I believe I've mentioned it before, is just sort of the inherent evil of certain creatures. And I think even in the humanoids video, I'd mentioned that goblins were sort of this inherent quasi-demonic race. That they're inherently evil, they're completely unknown. Remember that these write-ups for the characters are made from from Tautless when I actually wrote it up. But we got to keep tying everything in together with Trocare and what have you. So yeah, as an evil goblin, he appreciates the shows of evil, even though, he might be the next one up on the chopping block. That he was tortured and demeaned on a regular basis did nothing to deter his hero worship. Garrett might as well have walked on water. Garrett eventually let him off his leash, hoping to be rid of him. What fun is a broken Slaven will? Garrett is sadistic. He feeds off of the pain and misery of others. And when you're trying to, elicit a fear response or, force the guy to break down and cry or grovel or shake and shy away and, just see those kinds of negative emotional displays, and then actually what you have is a guy who's just saying, thank you, sir, can I have another? It just doesn't fulfill what Garrett's looking for. Unfortunately, the vile little imp followed Garrett at a distance, growing closer and bolder as each day passed. So basically, Garrett took him off the leash, gave him a swift kick in the butt, and sent him running. And Radok doubled back and kept watching him. And each day got closer and closer. One night, in a drunken fit, Garrett shooed Radok from his hiding place and, as the goblin groveled at his feet, thrust his sword through its chest. Now, I had mentioned Revolutionary Girl Utena in the other video. One of the main sights, I don't know what word I'm looking for here, in Revolutionary Girl Utena is the fact that this one girl, a magic sword comes out of her chest. You could actually like reach in and the hilt comes out and then you just pull out this long sword. And like during the commercial transitions, they show the two silhouettes and then the one girl pulls the sword out of the other girl's chest. It just looks kind of cool. But I thought, what if we took that literally? And so we'll go down here a little bit. Rather than quietly curl up and die, Radok boiled and shook with rage. All the pent-up anger and frustration at being ignored and rejected. Not being mistreated, but actually just having his advances shunned had caused him to become incredibly angry and possessed him with a spirit of blind fury. He knocked Garrett to the ground as he raced through the camp, tearing the delving party to pieces with bare hands and teeth. He finally collapsed as he lurched back to Garrett, pulling the blade from the wound. Garrett, impressed by the toad's aggression, bandaged his wounds and took him topside in the city. So basically, Garrett is drunk off his butt and decides enough is enough. This stupid goblin that keeps following me around is really putting a cramp in my style. And so he finds the bush or whatever Radok is hiding under and kicks him out of there. And Radok is standing there on his knees praying that Garrett's going to finally, accept him into the company or what have you. And then Garrett just draws his sword and stabs it right through the guy's chest. And Radok is like, okay, that's it. And he just goes batshit insane and starts running around, tearing up, tents. And when somebody comes rolling out of the tent, or maybe someone's drunk and they're kind of sitting there wobbly, jumps on him, starts biting his face off and clawing at him. Pretty awesome stuff. So let's see. Garrett sought out the Surgeon in the Shadows. The Surgeon in the Shadows is a big NPC in Tallis. There's a thing called Chaositech. And Chaositech is sort of a fantasy version of cyberpunk. You can get all kinds of extra attachments and upgrades to your body, but Chaositech runs on chaos energy. And as such, there's a decidedly evil and kind of wrong bent to it. But the Surgeon in the Shadows is like a freelance guy. If you can manage to contact him, he does quality work, and he can get you Chaositech implants or Chaositech upgrades or what have you. So Garrett actually found the Surgeon in the Shadows and paid him to turn Radok into a living sheath for his sword. Using a special alchemical mixture, the surgeon toughened the flesh exposed to the sword's blade to resist all manner of cutting. Radok awoke to find a hole through his chest, from sternum to coccyx. The sternum is like your breastbone right in front, and the coccyx is your tailbone at the base of your spine, right at the top end of your butt. So basically there's this sword wound going diagonally down, sort of from mid-chest right out to slightly above the buttocks. And when Radok awoke, of course, the sword was sitting in there. He created a sheath now, and the skin, there's, a hole there. Although it's not a really big hole. It's not like a big gaping 3-inch wide cylindrical hole. It's just sort of like a slit through his body. And the skin in there was toughened by this alchemical mixture such that he can't be cut that way. So when Garrett sticks his sword in there, nothing, no injuries happen. And of course, Radok was ecstatic because now Garrett, the mighty god that he is, has finally accepted Radok. Radok followed Garrett on his delves for several years. He learned to fight by watching his master and by practical experience upon finding that his master cared not to fend for him. So Radok thought that, at first, maybe since now he was Garrett's sheath, Garrett would pay a little bit more attention to him. But no, Garrett ignored him completely insofar as he was able, and Radok had to learn to fight to save himself. In fact, the only reason, probably what happened is if a monster had attacked Radok and killed him, Garrett's only thought would be to save his sword. Who cares about the goblin? Far outclassed by the challenges his master faced on a daily basis, imagine being a lowly goblin trying to follow around a high-level fighter. Radok quickly learned to hide from danger and attack at range while his master engaged their foes face to face. So he's like a skirmisher. These were the golden years for Radok, the closest he ever came to finding acceptance with Garrett, for his master soon fell in with a chaos cult. Yes, this all happened before Garrett ever joined the Faces of Fear. The leader of this cult, a woman Garrett referred to affectionately and piously as the Mistress, and that would be Saren, did not take well to Garrett's pet. She bored of his simple mind and inability to grasp her cult's purpose. Saren, ever the evangelist, was trying to instill in Radok, this lowly, stupid goblin creature, the purpose of the Faces of Fear, and Radok didn't quite get it. Radok is only here because he worships the very ground that Garrett walks on. He was a dumb beast, best bled to death and forgotten. Garrett literally threw him out of their hideout without a second thought or a parting word, because the Mistress had spoken. Saren talked to the goblin. The goblin is an idiot. Garrett, taken with the Mistress, he's like, okay, he wasn't fond of ever having the goblin around in the first place, so he literally picked up and threw Radok out of their hideout. Radok, left to fend for himself, took to the streets as a thief and sellsword. I don't actually think the sellsword part should remain, but it does fit in with Tallis. In a sad attempt to reclaim his master, he tracked down the surgeon in the shadows when he had saved up the money and added another sheath to his body. It was a welcome but short-lived balm. See, Radok had hoped that by adding another sheath to his body, he added a second sword sheath to his chest, that suddenly, Garrett would be like, oh, now I can stick two swords in him. He's useful again. But such was not the case. Radok began to crave the surgery and body modifications like a Strovil addict. His drug. Strovil is a highly addicting drug in Tallis. Not much actual benefit. Some drugs in D&D games, they have an actual benefit and a drawback, so you're kind of paying for it. Strovil is just like all drawback. But Radok was... Now what's cool was Garrett was a sadist, and Radok, as it turns out, was a masochist. He liked having pain and punishment inflicted on him. And going to get these surgeries and having his body mutilated and getting these modifications done, he was addicted to it. He needed it, and so he would go out and get money. Every copper flowed from his hands into the coffers of the surgeon until Radok became a walking mockery of a warrior, blades and points and hilts studding his entire being. Reference the picture. Alright, somewhere along the way, he also gained the confidence to confront the Mistress, that vile witch who stole Garrett away from him. He sneaked into the cult's hideout every night to sleep, avoiding their attention for a few days, until they caught him curled up in the corner of Garrett's room. The Mistress seemed rather impressed with his new appearance, but acted as though he were invisible. The others followed suit. Radok was not sure whether he was happy to be with Garrett, or unhappy because no one paid him any mind. See, Saren was impressed. Since Saren's highest act of faith is mutilation, and Radok had completely mutilated his body with all of these modifications, she was impressed by it. He was following through on her faith, as it were. And so, but she wouldn't openly acknowledge him. If she came and said, oh, this is great, we're gonna, you're a team member now, that doesn't fit with her MO. She likes to cause more pain and suffering. So she wanted to keep him around, but she also needed to make sure that he wasn't too, happy with the situation. So she had everybody just ignore him. He could hang around. That was his reward for his mutilation. But they weren't going to actually pay any attention to him. This is the situation as it stands. Radok is free to come and go as he pleases amongst the cult, but he is utterly ignored by them. He hates the Mistress. He hates the Mistress for turning Garrett against him, but he is I love the word want, to eliminate her for Garrett's sake. He hates her. He wants to kill her, but since Garrett likes her and he likes Garrett, he can't bring himself to kill her yet. The rest of the cult is as invisible to Radok as he is to them, until and unless they obstruct him. So the only two people Radok actually ever pays attention to are Garrett, because he likes him, and the mistress, because he hates her. Everybody else doesn't even register with Radok, just like everybody ignores him. Radok is the hardiest and most stealthy member of the cult. Like a rat, he knows how to slink through the shadows, how to sneak up unawares, how to clamber up sheer walls to remain out of sight. He loves ambushes. He loves the mixed look of surprise and agony on his victims' faces when he pelts them from the rooftops of an alley. He loves to give chase, coming in and out of sight. I spelled sight wrong. I need to fix that. To build up fear before seemingly fading into the distance to give the illusion of escape. And he loves to dispel that illusion with a subtle blade between the ribs or a completely forthright axe to the face. Think of a horror movie. He's popping in and out. You're running, you see him coming down the alleyway towards you. You take off running, and you see his face. Like as you're running by, maybe there's a window, and you can see him through the window. And then maybe you see his shadow passing up atop the roofs, and suddenly you get a dagger in your shoulder, and you keep running, and he's just constantly popping up in and out of there until finally you round a corner and there's a bunch of people and you think you're safe, and then suddenly he just stabs you and you lie there bleeding in the street. Until he is dead, Radok will never stop fighting. That's why he's the hardiest member of the cult. He will not stop. He's like, well, actually, his eviscerated one-armed torso will claw its way across the floor just to bite you on the ankle and punch you in the shin. I was just about to say he's just like a snake or something where, maybe you cut off the head, but it still has a little bit of energy left to bite you. This guy, you could totally chop his legs off so there's nothing below the waist, and then cut off one of his arms, and he'll still claw his way across the floor just to cause you a little bit more pain before he dies. Appearance. If not for Radok's self-imposed features, he would be an unremarkable specimen of the goblin species. What little skin remains unmarred by scars and burns and modifications is green like a sour apple. I don't think I actually was looking at this picture when I wrote this description. It just so happened to match. His eyes are yellow like the full moon, and that's the full moon when it's yellow, not the full moon when it's, white. And unlike his fellows, they shine instead of moldering beneath a dull glaze. Your normal slack-jawed idiot goblin, this is not him. This guy is malicious and burns with an evil fire all the way down in the pits of his black heart. Radok's most striking feature, taken singularly, is the hole through his chest. He has a big old sword hole through his chest. A vertical slit of alchemically toughened flesh. The hole extends from the center of his chest down through his body and exits from his lower back. When Garrett favored Radok as his personal slave, this was the sheath he used for his sword. Since falling out of Garrett's service, Radok has added dozens of similar but smaller sheaths across his body. Up each arm, down each leg, across his stomach and shoulders, and even a few on and in his face. What's wrong with your face? None of them are empty. None of them. Every single one of them. His entire body bristles with sharp points, sharp blades, and hilts that are no doubt attached to sharp points and sharp blades. Finally, a series of wide, double scars surround many of Radok's joints. His fingers, wrists, elbows, ankles, and knees all feature these scars, as does the top of his head, though these are obscured by the top knot of hair that grows around them. These scars are the result of special surgery by the surgeon in the shadows to further augment Radok's armament. With a twist, Radok's joints come apart. His fingers twist off to become darts. His left arm detaches at the elbow to reveal a flail. His topknot swivels open to produce a thin spiked chain coiled in a hollow in his skull. They had to take out some brain for that one. Radok does not shy away from using these weapons when necessary, but even he realizes it's best to fight tooth and nail when one's teeth and nails are still attached to one's body. Essentially, every bit of Radok is a weapon. He is never unarmed. I think I actually literally say that at some point. So if a PC, he normally fights and he's got daggers or an axe or what have you, and a PC disarms him. Well, that's fine. He'll draw another one. I mean, from all the sheaths and all these little hidden compartments all over his body, he'll continue drawing weapons. Well, what if, say, he's captured and the PC, they knock him unconscious, they take all these weapons off of him? Well, he can still twist his wrist and whip out a short sword, or pluck off a finger and it's a dart and throw it at people. He is never unarmed. And if he is completely and utterly out of weapons, he's basically just like this hollowed out husk of a goblin lying on the ground. Secret. I only did these write-ups for two of them, Radok the Toad and the Asp. And I wanted to have a secret because it's usually, I think I've mentioned in an earlier video, whenever you create something as a DM, it's good to create a secret about it because it adds a little bit of depth to it. Beneath his, this kind of secret is not that great of a depth creator, but it's just cool. Beneath his skin, Radok harbors a pair of Chaositech devices he affectionately calls his kill suit. The first of the devices is a total body graft that lies beneath the skin and integrated with his musculature. In order to get this put on, the Surgeon in the Shadows literally skinned him completely and then put his skin back on afterwards. In the bizarre and unlikely event that he has exhausted the dozens of weapons sequestered in his body sheaths, Radok can activate this graft to literally cover his body in hundreds of metal spines and razor blades. They erupt from beneath his skin in a cloud of blood and pain and turn him into a living weapon. Reference kind of this. Imagine if all of these spikes were coming out of his skin rather than on this like armband. And imagine these things were all coming out of his knuckles instead of as part of this, handle here, like a dagger. Radok imagines using his kill suit to latch onto an opponent in a mocking hug and bleeding him to death as his laughs and his victim's struggles shred the razors ever deeper in their flesh. There was a character in Dragon Ball Z, I can't remember his name, it was like Chow Chow or something, and he was this tiny little guy, and like his main method of attack was apparently jumping onto someone's back and then blowing up. That's what Radok does. The second Chaositech device is a Chaos Bomb implanted in Radok's midsection. This bomb is his true weapon of last resort, and it is triggered by a purely mental action, as Radok never knows which, if any, of his limbs will still be attached to his body, should a fight ever reach this point. Radok only has to think about blowing up, and he will blow up. The bomb explodes in a brilliant ball of fire and shiny metal shrapnel, engulfing and hopefully destroying whomever Radok blesses with his life's last kill suit embrace. Personality? Radok may be the most immediately dangerous member of the cult. While the others are easily more powerful, Radok lacks their sense of self-preservation and does not distinguish between the battle and the war. Without another cultist to temper his aggression, Radok is sadistically violent and unwilling, or perhaps even unable, to stop fighting until his foes have fallen. And as mentioned before, Radok fights until you die. There are times when he can run away. Like I said, he likes to do the hit and run tactics, and maybe at some point while doing the hit and run, he runs and forgets to come back to hit. But Radok is the guy who is just like a violent powder keg ready to go off. I mean, almost literally a violent powder keg who can blow up. Quote, I'm not going to read this in a voice, but basically I'm going to cut you into a million pieces with this knife, and this one, and this one, and this one! Because he's always got another knife on him. And then the DM's notes. Radok is never unarmed, as I mentioned. He is proficient with every weapon, and any object he can lift, he can wield in a deadly manner. Makes for interesting bar fights. There's a couple prestige classes in D&D that allow you to use improvised weapons as though you were proficient with them, so you don't take a penalty and they do better damage. Radok has that. He's like Jackie Chan. There is nothing he can't grab and use proficiently as a weapon. He has a rogue's sneak attack because he's studied that back when he was with Garrett, jumping in, doing one attack, running away. A barbarian's rage because he's filled with maliciousness. Several fighter bonus feats, most especially quick draw and the ranged combat feats. Quick draw because he can just produce a weapon in an instant. I mean, literally, it's just boom, oop, he's got another weapon. A decent attack bonus, and similar hit points. His skills center on stealth, athletics, and combat. He needs to be unseen, he needs to be able to climb around and jump over things and walk tight ropes, and he needs to be able to fight really well. He will continuously spring ambushes, attacking at range and hiding and running away before anyone can close to melee. And then down here is just a bigger version of that same picture. And the artist in this is Alex Horley. I wanted to give credit on that. So essentially, Radok came about because there was something Garrett, as I mentioned in the other video, kind of confounds me. I have a good ideas for him and how he acts and that, but there are certain bits of him that I don't quite grasp. One of the things I wanted for him was he wanted to elicit fights from other people. And some of the ways he would do this is by being a total sadistic jerkball. And so one of his brilliant ideas was when he had Radok and he had stabbed him through the chest, he's like, wait, I've got an idea. And so he went and made Radok into a sheath for his sword, and Radok would, a little goblin, walking around following him with this giant sword through his chest. And whenever Garrett was going to get into a fight, he would just reach over and pull the sword out of the goblin and fight somebody. And Garrett's thought was, if he did this, if he showed such utter disdain for another living creature, even be it a goblin, that it would provoke more people into fighting him. Problem is, not too many people care if you stab a goblin through the chest. I mean, that's kind of par for the course, even amongst the good guys. And so Garrett had to find something else to provoke people. And that's part of the reason why he kicked Radok to the wayside. He had what Garrett thought was this brilliant idea to get people to fight him so that he could kind of legally kill them. You challenge a guy to a duel or, attack some guy for being evil and he defends himself. He kind of gets away with slicing you up into pieces. But unfortunately, it didn't work out the way he wanted. So he kicks Radok to the wayside and goes to find something better to provoke people. And the next video I'll do will be Garrett. Now, I don't have a complete write-up like this for Garrett, but what I do have for Garrett is his swords. Garrett collects magic swords, and so we will detail those. So until next time, bye-bye.